What does it mean when the world's most powerful nation gets involved in a conflict in the Middle East? Today, we dive into the US's recent involvement in Yemen. In recent times, Houthi strikes have become a cause of major concern, prompting reactions from nations worldwide. Notably, the US and UK took a firm stance, coordinating an attack on Houthi-controlled sites. This series of bombings was not merely a military action, but a statement from President Biden, warning of further measures to safeguard international commerce. But as you might expect, this move has generated mixed reactions within the US Congress. While some members are in full support of this action against the Houthis, others have raised concerns over the apparent lack of congressional oversight. The debate is heated and the perspectives are varied. Some lawmakers argue that these strikes are necessary to maintain stability and security in the Gulf. They see this as a justified response to a group that has been endangering innocent civilians and launching attacks on US personnel. On the other hand, there are those who believe that the power to declare war rests solely with Congress, and they express concerns about the escalation of conflict in the Middle East and the urgent need for a ceasefire. The Biden administration's approach has been described as balanced and sensible, blending diplomacy with military action. But it's not without its critics. Some accuse the administration of being too soft on Iran and its proxies, while others commend the decision to take decisive action against the Houthis. The strikes are seen as a message to deter terrorism and protect the free flow of commerce. However, opinions diverge on whether they will be effective in deterring Iran and its proxies. Some lawmakers argue that the attacks have been long overdue, while others believe that the situation should have been addressed earlier. As we can see, the US's response to Houthi strikes is a complex issue with many differing viewpoints. Now, let's delve into how the Biden administration is handling the situation. President Biden's approach to the Yemen conflict is a complex interplay of military action and diplomatic negotiations. It's a high-stakes game of chess, with lives hanging in the balance. The administration has been active in taking measures to protect international commerce, a cornerstone of our global economy. This includes a coordinated attack on the Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen, in partnership with the UK. These strikes aim to deter the rebels and safeguard the free flow of commerce, a move that has drawn both criticism and praise. The Biden administration's approach has been applauded by those who see the need for a strong stance against threats to international security. They argue that the strikes are both necessary and proportional, given the Houthis' actions of endangering innocent civilians and launching attacks on US personnel. The administration's tactics are seen as a sensible blend of diplomacy and military action, a pragmatic response to a complex and volatile situation. However, this approach has not been without its critics. Some lawmakers have expressed concerns about the escalation of conflict in the Middle East, asserting that there is an urgent need for a ceasefire. There are also calls for greater congressional oversight, with critics arguing that only Congress has the power to declare war. These voices question the effectiveness of the strikes in deterring Iran and its proxies, and suggest that the situation should have been addressed earlier. Yet, despite these differing views, there is a prevalent consensus on the need to maintain pressure on the Houthis and confront Iran's influence. This includes calls for the president to present the administration's strategy to Congress, underlining the importance of transparency in this high-stakes situation. Clearly, the Biden administration's approach to the Yemen conflict is a balancing act between military action and diplomacy. But what are the implications and potential consequences of these actions? The scale of the US's involvement in Yemen has sparked a myriad of potential outcomes. The immediate consequence, of course, is the potential danger to US troops and civilians in Saudi Arabia. The idea of withholding military aid, such as delaying shipments of Patriot missiles, which Saudi Arabia uses to defend against attacks from Houthi rebels, raises concerns about the safety of American personnel and civilians in the region. However, the implications of this move are not just limited to the immediate physical dangers. There's also a political dimension to consider. The US's actions in Yemen could significantly alter its relationship with Saudi Arabia, a key ally in the Middle East. It could be seen as the US leveraging its military support to influence Saudi Arabia's oil production policy, which could set a precedent for future interactions. Then there's the question of deterrent. A significant part of the US's strategy seems to be the belief that these strikes will deter Iran, and its proxies. But opinions differ on this point. Some believe that the strikes are a necessary show of force, a message to Iran and its proxies that their actions have consequences. Others, however, argue that it may not be enough, that it may only escalate the situation further, and that the strikes might not deter Iran, but could potentially embolden them instead. Moreover, there's the issue of international law and the US's adherence to it. Some members of Congress have expressed their concern over the lack of congressional oversight and the potential violation of the War Powers Act. This could potentially lead to a constitutional crisis and impact the US's reputation globally. The last, but certainly not the least, is the humanitarian aspect. Yemen is already facing one of the worst humanitarian crises in the world. Escalating the conflict could potentially worsen the situation for millions of Yemeni civilians. As we can see, the US's involvement in Yemen could have far-reaching consequences. But what does all this mean in the grand scheme of things? As we delve into the broader implications of the United States' involvement in Yemen, we find ourselves navigating a complex geopolitical landscape. The US's actions are not just a response to the immediate threat posed by the Houthis. They're also part of a larger strategy to counterbalance Iran's growing influence in the Middle East. By targeting the Iran-backed Houthi rebels, the US sends a clear message. It will not stand idle while Iran continues to extend its reach across the region. However, while some see this as a necessary step towards maintaining stability and security in the Gulf, others question the US's role in the region. They argue that the strikes, while perhaps necessary for immediate security, could escalate the conflict further, leading to an unpredictable spiral of violence. There are concerns about the potential danger this could pose to US troops and civilians in Saudi Arabia and the region at large. They contend that diplomatic measures should take precedence over military actions and that Congress should have more oversight. But there's a counter-argument. Some believe that by maintaining pressure on the Houthis and confronting Iran's influence, the US is doing what's necessary to protect international commerce and ensure the free flow of goods, which is vital for global economic stability. There's a clear divide in perspective, but one thing is certain. The situation in Yemen is not just about Yemen. It's about the balance of power in the Middle East and how the US chooses to assert its influence in the region. Ultimately, the US's involvement in Yemen is a complex issue that will likely continue to evolve. As we wrap up our discussion on the US's involvement in Yemen, let's revisit the key points. The US and UK's recent coordinated attack on Houthi-controlled sites underscores the complexity of the situation. The Biden administration's approach, combining diplomacy with military action, is seen as balanced, yet draws mixed reactions. The implications and consequences remain uncertain, with differing viewpoints on the effectiveness of these strikes. The bigger picture, however, revolves around maintaining stability and security in the Gulf. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of the US's involvement in Yemen. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more insightful discussions on a range of topics.